The hallway at Guadalupe Mutual always smelled faintly of burnt coffee and toner. A mixture I had grown used to after 8 years working there. But that afternoon the scent turned sour in my nose when Lark leaned close. Her lips barely moving, and whispered, "We thought you already knew about them." And in that instant the hum of the vending machine drowned out the clatter of keyboards. My knees went soft, though I kept walking as if I had just been told some trivial office secret. But the phrase lodged in my ribs like a sliver of glass. What did she mean them? And why did she look at me with that kind of pity reserved for the last person to catch up to a cruel joke? I kept my smile plastered on, clutching the stack of policy folders tighter, the edges cutting into my palms, and made it back to my cubicle where the photo of August on the Guadalupe River still sat in a cracked dollar store frame, his smile wide under the brim of a faded ranger's cap. And I remembered the way he had promised me once that small towns made it impossible to keep secrets, yet here I was, apparently the only one in Kerrville oblivious to what was unfolding under the fluorescent lights and Friday happy hours. My screen blurred as Slack messages popped up from Sloan Pena in claims. Her tone always a bit too playful, too peppered with inside jokes I didn't understand. And suddenly every emoji she had sent August felt like a breadcrumb in a trail I had refused to follow. I clicked away, telling myself to breathe, but the air was thick. The sounds of the office muffled, like I was underwater, the whisper replaying, looping, amplifying, my throat tightening until I grabbed my bag and muttered something about a client call, rushing outside into the Texas heat where the cicadas screamed and the asphalt shimmered, leaning against the hood of my car until my heartbeat slowed, staring at the courthouse dome in the distance, thinking of all the afternoons August said he was running late because of meetings. How he smelled faintly of someone else's perfume once and brushed it off as being stuck in an elevator with a client, and I remembered laughing, believing, moving on. And now every memory was cracking open, revealing rot I had ignored. I drove home past the river, past the feed store, the steering wheel slick under my palms, telling myself I needed proof, not whispers. That I couldn't just storm in with accusations like some small-town caricature. But as I passed the boutique on Water Street where last month I saw a bag from their window tossed on the passenger side of his truck, something cold dripped down my spine. I parked in our gravel driveway, the porch light still broken from last winter, and sat there listening to the cicadas shift to crickets, wondering if tonight I would finally ask him, or if I would keep pretending until the truth came crashing down without my permission. Because deep down I knew Kerrville never kept secrets. It only delayed the moment when they became impossible to ignore. And that moment had just arrived. That evening the kitchen light flickered as I set down a pot of beans. The hum of the refrigerator too loud against the silence between us. August scrolling on his phone, shoulders bent, not even glancing up when I cleared my throat. I told myself I would wait for the right opening, something casual. But the words from Lark gnawed at me until my jaw ached. I slid into the chair across from him, watching the way his thumb moved in smooth rhythm, his face lit by a glow I couldn't see. "Who is she, August?" I asked, my voice thinner than I intended, and he blinked, finally looking at me, his brow tightening as if I had asked about the weather on Mars. "What are you talking about?" he said, chuckling nervously, shoving the phone face down on the table, the sound of glass against wood sharp in the air. I pushed forward, my pulse hammering. "Don't play dumb with me, I know there's someone." And I waited, watching the way his hands fidgeted, One thumb rubbing the other like he was sanding away guilt, he leaned back, sighing. Shaking his head, muttering something about me being paranoid. But the flicker of fear in his eyes betrayed him. I thought of Sloane's name lighting up on his phone last week when he left it on the nightstand, the way he grabbed it so fast, as if her words could burn me. I reached for my bag and pulled out the folded boutique receipt I had stuffed there weeks ago. The same one I had told myself was a gift for me he hadn't given yet. I laid it flat between us, the paper trembling as much as my hands. His eyes darted down, then up, jaw tightening. "This doesn't mean anything," he said, voice clipped. But I could see the vein in his temple pulsing. I leaned forward, whispering like Lark had whispered to me, "Everyone knows, August, everyone but me." And the silence that followed was louder than any argument we had ever had. The air heavy with unspoken admissions, the ceiling fan clacking overhead in a steady rhythm. A metronome for the unraveling of everything I thought was solid. He rubbed his forehead, muttered something about stress, about me twisting things, but his excuses fell flat, collapsing under the weight of my certainty, because in that moment, in his stuttered breaths and darting eyes, I finally saw it, saw her presence seeping into our lives like water under a locked door. Unstoppable, undeniable, and I realized I wasn't asking for confirmation anymore. I was bracing for the collapse. The collapse didn't come in a dramatic slam of doors or shouted confessions. It came in the quiet, in the way August rose from his chair, muttered something about needing air, and walked out onto the porch without looking back, leaving me with the receipt staring up like an accusation, the beans cooling untouched, and my own heartbeat drumming in my ears. I followed minutes later, the screen door squealing, the night air heavy with cedar and dust. He sat on the steps with his head in his hands. And for a moment I almost reached out, almost let habit guide me. But then I remembered Lark's pity, the sideways glances at work, the knowledge that everyone in Kerrville had been living with my secret before I even knew it. "Was it Sloane?" I asked, my voice low, and he flinched, confirming what I hadn't wanted to say out loud. He didn't deny it, didn't even try. Just kept staring at the gravel, his breath shallow. And in that silence the truth spread between us like a stain. I felt my stomach lurch. Flashes of them at happy hours, her hand brushing his arm. The way he came home smelling faintly of citrus perfume when I knew she wore something bright. "Like that," he finally said, "it wasn't supposed to mean anything." And those words split me open, because he had already admitted enough. He had named it without saying her name. I laughed then. A short bitter sound that startled even me. "You gave her something from Water Street, August. Something you've never even thought to buy me," and he winced, his shoulders curling in. But offered no defense, just silence, the kind that confirmed everything. The neighbor's porch light flicked on across the street, shadows stretching between us. And I realized how small our world was. How impossible it would be to untangle the whispers that would follow. The shame of being the last to know. I stepped back inside, pacing the living room, my hand brushing over the arm of the couch we picked out after our wedding. The walls closing in with memories, and I thought of how I had defended him countless times, dismissing my friend's suspicions, insisting August wasn't like that. But now even the floorboards seemed to mock me, creaking underfoot as if they too had been keeping his secret. He came back in, standing awkwardly in the doorway, eyes red, and whispered, "I'm sorry." As though that word could sweep away the months of deception, but it only made me colder. Because sorry was for mistakes, and this had been a choice, over and over again. Until even strangers had seen it, everyone but me. Sleep never came that night. I lay on my side staring at the faint glow of the alarm clock. Every tick of red digits carving deeper into the silence between us. August asleep on the far edge of the mattress, his back a wall I couldn't climb. The distance more suffocating than shouting would have been. At 3:07 I slipped out of bed and padded into the kitchen, the linoleum cool under my bare feet. I opened his laptop that he had carelessly left on the counter. Heart pounding as if the machine itself would accuse me, the screen lit up to emails. Dozens of them, casual exchanges with Sloan that began months ago, at first about work claims. Then shifting, drifting, words taking on an intimacy they had no right to hold, inside jokes. Complaints about me thinly veiled as stress. A photo of her coffee mug with a note about how he always forgot sugar. And then one that made me press my palm to my mouth to keep from crying out, her in a red dress. Mirror selfie, captioned "Can't wait for Saturday." His reply a string of hearts I had never seen him send me, my stomach lurched, bile rising. I closed the screen but the images burned into my mind. I went outside. Sitting on the porch swing with a blanket wrapped tight, the cicadas now quiet. Leaving only the occasional bark of a dog down the street. The town asleep while my world split at its seams. By dawn I had decided I wouldn't confront him again, not yet. I wanted to see. To catch the shape of their betrayal myself. I needed the weight of proof that couldn't be dismissed as paranoia. When he finally stirred. Yawning, scratching his chest like nothing had shifted. I poured his coffee with hands steady from sheer force of will, his smile weak. Eyes avoiding mine, and I played along, chatting about errands. Nodding when he said he'd be late again because of end-of-quarter reports. His lie so smooth it almost made me doubt what I had read. But the memory of those emails hardened me. After he left I showered, dressed, and drove past the office, parking 2 blocks away. Watching from the shade of a pecan tree as he walked out at noon. Not with the lunch bag I had packed but with Sloan beside him, her hair catching the sunlight. Their shoulders nearly brushing, they laughed at something. His face softened in a way I hadn't seen in years. And in that moment I knew my marriage wasn't just cracked, it was gone. Swallowed by the small-town rumor mill that had birthed Lark's whisper. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Wondering if this was the part where I stayed silent or if this was the part where I burned it all down. I didn't burn it down that day, instead I drove past them with windows rolled tight. My pulse hammering as though I had committed some crime just by witnessing their laughter. The steering wheel slick under my palms. I circled the courthouse square twice before pulling into the library lot. Sitting there with the AC blasting stale air and my chest caving in. The urge to scream pressing hard at my throat but I swallowed it. Too afraid someone might hear, too afraid to be the one to make the whispers louder. Later that night August came home later than usual. The smell of barbecue sauce faint on his shirt though I knew he hadn't been anywhere near the smokehouse. I set the table in silence, each plate and fork aligned like a ritual. And when he walked in he kissed my hair as if routine could erase the absence I had seen. I nodded, played the dutiful role, but inside I was cataloging every detail, every slip. I checked his phone when he showered. Scrolling past innocuous group chats until I found her name again. Messages deleted but the gaps obvious, timestamps like missing teeth in a grin. I screenshotted what little remained, emailed it to myself. Evidence accumulating like stones in my pocket, heavy, unavoidable. At work the next day, Lark glanced at me, eyes wide, then quickly away. And I realized the whole office wasn't just whispering, they were waiting. Watching how long I would pretend. Humiliation flushed hot through me, but I lifted my chin. Pretending too, until lunch when I followed him again, this time to the motel by the highway. The one with peeling turquoise paint and a crooked neon sign. I parked far enough to see without being seen, and when she stepped out of her car, hair tied back, laughter carrying across the lot even before she reached him. I felt my vision tunnel, my breath short, and then I saw him open his arms. Saw her slide into them with a comfort that was already well worn. My hand gripped the seatbelt like a lifeline, and something inside me fractured. Sharp and final, still I stayed, frozen. Forcing myself to watch until they disappeared into room 12, the curtains drawn. The door clicking shut, the truth sealed behind it but no longer hidden from me. I drove home on autopilot, the fields blurring, the radio a low hum I couldn't process. And when I pulled into our driveway, the house looked foreign. Like a stage set I had been tricked into living inside. I sat there long after the engine cut off, staring at the broken porch light, knowing I couldn't unknow what I had seen. And the question gnawed at me, what would I do with this proof, this ruin clutched in my chest? How long could I keep breathing around it before it demanded to be spoken? The proof lived inside me like a second heartbeat, pounding louder with each passing day. I carried it through work, through church on Sunday, through every dinner where August smiled too easily and asked about my day as if our lives hadn't already split down the center. I nodded, answered, even laughed at his jokes. All the while feeling like a stranger squatting in my own body. By Monday I couldn't hold still, the motel burned in my mind like a brand. So I drove there at noon, parking in the same spot. Watching the doors as if they might confess, the number 12 glaring back at me, I went inside. The front desk clerk raising an eyebrow when I asked for a receipt under his name. She slid the paper across the counter without question. The thin slip confirming what my eyes had already seen. I folded it into my wallet like a weapon. On the drive back I rehearsed what I would say. Words tumbling over each other, none sharp enough to cut the knot between us. When I pulled into the driveway he was already home, his truck parked crooked. Inside I found him in the living room, TV muted. Staring at the blank screen as if it might save him, he looked up, startled. And I held out the folded receipt, my hands steady in a way my insides were not. He didn't take it, just swallowed hard, eyes darting, lips parting without sound. I saw you. August, I said, my voice calm, almost too calm, not just the emails, not just the perfume. I watched you walk into that room with her. His shoulders collapsed inward. The fight drained before it could start. He buried his face in his hands, muttering, I didn't mean for it to go this far, and something in me snapped, a laugh escaped. Brittle and sharp, you didn't mean to? I echoed, pacing, the walls pressing closer with every step. Do you know what it's like to be the last to know? To have everyone else pity me because my husband couldn't even bother to hide it? He lifted his head, tears staining his cheeks. And for a fleeting second I saw the boy I married. The one who promised me honesty under the Kerrville stars. But the vision dissolved as quickly as it came. Replaced by the man who chose her again and again. I turned away, gripping the back of the couch to keep from shaking. The silence stretched, heavy, final. Until he whispered, what do you want me to do? And I realized I didn't know. Didn't know if I wanted him gone, if I wanted revenge, if I wanted to disappear myself. All I knew was the truth had been dragged into the light. Undeniable now, and nothing would ever fit back the way it once had. The days that followed felt like walking across cracked ice, every sound amplified, every step threatening to break the surface. August moved through the house like a ghost. Cooking breakfast he didn't eat, folding laundry with mechanical precision, hovering near me as though presence alone might undo the wreckage. But I spoke little, answering him with nods or silence. Until Friday night, when the town gathered at the Guadalupe Street Fair. A tradition we had never missed, lanterns strung across the square. The air thick with smoke from brisket pits and laughter from neighbors. I went alone, needing to feel the crowd press against me, needing to remind myself I still existed outside his orbit. But as I walked past the booths, Lark caught my arm, her eyes searching mine, and whispered again, "I'm so sorry. We thought you knew." The pity stung sharper now that I had proof. Sharper because I wasn't just the last to know. I was the one living inside the scandal everyone else dissected. I pulled away, finding refuge by the riverbank, the lantern light rippling across the dark water. And that's where I saw them, August and Sloane, standing too close near the funnel cake stand. Her hand brushing his face bent toward hers with a tenderness he hadn't given me in years. The sight rooted me to the gravel, my chest tightening until I could hardly breathe. But then something strange happened. I didn't cry, didn't rage. Instead, a stillness spread through me, cold and sharp, as if the ice beneath my feet had finally cracked. But I was standing on the other side, free. I pulled out my phone, snapped a single photo, his hand on the small of her back, her laugh open and bright, and I tucked it away, not to confront him, not to plead, but to keep as the final nail, the undeniable image that marked the end. I turned and walked back toward the square, the music rising behind me, neighbors calling my name. But I kept moving, the photo heavy in my pocket, the receipt folded in my wallet, the truth etched into my bones. And for the first time since Lark's whisper, I felt lighter. Because the story wasn't theirs to write anymore, it was mine. And though the ending wasn't what I had dreamed on our wedding night under the Kerrville stars, it was still an ending, and in endings there is room, however narrow, for a beginning I hadn't yet imagined.